Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, and in today's video we are tackling a sort of new sublimation product. So these are what I'm going to call hydro sublimation transfers or hydro sublimation paper. I've got two different brands here, one from Craft Express and one from PYD Life. And these are basically sublimation patterns that you can put on hard blanks, so specifically tumblers and those sorts of things. And one of the cool things about these transfers is that they should work a little bit better on tapered or oddly shaped blanks. Now I did do some tests with these, and as you'll see there are some pitfalls and we'll talk about those, but if you're looking for an all-over pattern on your blank, then this might be a good option for you. This is just another fun way to sublimate when you don't have a sublimation printer, so let's get started. Here's what you're going to need for this project. Obviously you are going to need the transfer. So this is what it looks like, and it comes in actually quite a large roll, so you could make a lot of projects with each of these rolls. And it's very thin, almost like tissue paper, maybe a little thicker than tissue paper, but not by much. So I have this sort of green leaf pattern, that was the one from Craft Express, and then I have this sort of jungle, cheetah print, and it's pink and blue, and that one is from PYD Life. You are also going to need your blanks. So I've got two that we're going to use here today. One is a simple can cooler here. You can just take this plastic piece off the top, and the other one is this tumbler. Now this tumbler has this tapered bottom, and these particular sublimation transfers should work really well on this compared to a flat sheet of paper. This is a project that's going to be done in a sublimation oven using shrink wrap. So here I have some tall shrink wrap, which I'm going to cut down for this little guy here, and I've got some slightly wider shrink wrap that we can use for this bigger tumbler. I also have my oven preheating on the other side of my craft room over there. I have it set to 385 degrees. Now we're going to be applying these transfers with water. So I have a little cup of water here and a little paintbrush. You can use a regular paintbrush. I like this little sponge brush. I also have a mat protecting my table today. You may also want to have some kind of thick rubber bands. The hardest part about this tumbler is going to be this little taper right here. It is really hard to get that paper really tight against this particular blank. So we're going to use those rubber bands to really press the transfer into this just little area right here that is a little bit difficult, and hopefully that will get us a transfer that is not blurry. You're also going to want a heat gun. For a lot of the projects that I do using my sublimation oven, I will just put the shrink wrap on and stick it right in the oven without this step. But for this particular project, because this taper is really difficult to get right, a heat gun is very helpful. And then there's kind of one other thing that I think is really helpful. To cut down these transfers, I like an acrylic ruler and a rotary cutter. And again, I'm using it on the self-healing cutting mat. You don't want to use this directly on your table. I just find this a lot easier for cutting down my, my transfer here. So you can use this. You can also use scissors if that's all you've got. And then finally, you're going to want some heat-resistant gloves because when these come out of the oven, they're going to be hot. Let's start with the easy project. And I'm calling this easy because there is no taper. This is a very straightforward shape. So I took the lid off. And then I'm gonna cut down my transfer here. So let's open it up here. And when I was practicing with this, I cut a very uneven edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this a much straighter edge here. Sort of hacked it with my scissors the first time I did it. And basically, I'm just gonna give myself a straighter edge here. So let's just get rid of that. That can go in the trash. And now I have a straighter edge to work with. So I'm gonna set this aside for just a second, and I wanna see how much I'm gonna need here. And I'm just going to kind of guess right now about where this needs to go. And we can trim it down a little bit more if we need to here in a minute. So let's cut this down to fit, just like that. You can see, I mean, this is an absolutely enormous roll of this stuff. You could make a lot of projects. And then we can wrap it around and kind of see where we're at. So of course, this is way too tall. So I'm kind of thinking about which of these colors I want. There's some more pinks up here and purples down here. I really like those pinks. So I'm actually going to put this toward the top and trim off the bottom. I mean, I could easily make two of these can coolers from just this sheet here. So let's see. And it does not have to be perfect. I feel like when we're usually doing tumbler transfers, you have to get that sizing just right. This is not such an exact science. Trim that just like that. Set this one aside for use on some other project. And now we have this little wrap here. Now I will say that any overlap you have, you may be able to see some of the image transfer through the paper. So you may see sort of a, ghosting isn't quite the right word, but you'll see like an imprint of some of these other colors. So you do want to get it pretty close to lining up. That being said, this paper is kind of fragile, so it's really hard to get it perfect. So I don't mind if there's a little bit of an overlap, but you definitely want an overlap versus there being a gap, because you don't want like a big white stripe down the side of your image. So I am going to trim this just a little bit more, just to give myself a little less overlap. That's pretty close. There is a little bit of overlap, but I think that that's actually not going to look too bad. You'll notice that this is in no way a seamless tumbler. We are going to have purple over here and pink over here, and you're just going to be able to see the seam. But that's okay. Now to actually adhere our transfer, I'm going to wrap it around the other way so that the color side is in, just like that. And normally we would tape, right? Normally we would just tape this on and press it with any other type of sublimation transfer. But with this type of sublimation transfer, we're going to get it wet. So I'm going to just try and get it kind of as close as I can get to being straight here. I want to make sure, again, I don't have a gap. I'm going to bring my water over here, and I'm going to just get this wet. So it feels very wrong to do this, but this is why it's called hydro paper here. So this is where you want to start smoothing it out toward that seam, right? Just like this. I find it very hard to get perfectly get it perfectly flat. So just like that, we're just going to keep getting this wet on the other side here. Just like this. This really is just such a different way to craft here than I'm used to for sublimation. But in my tests, you know, it worked. So you can see here that it's getting a little bubbly, so you want to kind of smooth those bubbles out toward the seam. Let's see, get it really flat on there, smooth it out, and then smooth it all the way around. No matter what I do, I don't feel like I can get it as flat as I would a flat piece of paper, but overall I don't think it matters. Then you want to sort of just curve these edges in. You can tuck the top in just like this, just like that. One of the things I really like about this particular product is it makes very good top and bottom edges. So that's basically it on that front. So now we're going to take our sublimation shrink wrap, and I am going to trim it down just a bit because it is too large. So I'm just going to use my little tool here. And now we can put this over our project here. Looks like this. Now it is a little bit difficult because it's wet. So you want to make sure you're kind of pulling down on it without really disturbing too much of the actual paper that we've got there. Just like this. Now for most other projects I would stick this in the oven as is, but I do find for this particular material that the heat gun works really well. And this is going to go in my oven for 8 minutes. I'm gonna do 4 minutes, and then I'm gonna rotate and flip it and give it 4 minutes more. While that one bakes, let's work on this second one here. So just like I did with the other one, I'm gonna roll this out and give myself sort of an approximate amount here that I need. Again, I can trim it down later, and this roll is enormous, so I'm not really worried about wasting too much of it. Just trim it down here. Like that. And then because this one is so tall, I'm going to trim off a little bit from the top. I just don't need it. You want a little bit of overlap though, so you can tuck it inside. So just like this. Let's trim that off. And again, if you'd like, you could save this for another project. And then let's see how much overlap we have. Do I want to trim this anymore? Yeah, I think I do. I'm going to trim off another little less than an inch or so here. Like that. So applying this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This top part, great, it wraps around. And then you end up having just extra paper at the bottom just because of math, how math works. This is a larger diameter and this is a smaller diameter, and it needs different amount of paper. So I found for me, when I was doing my tests, that the best thing to do was to kind of get the top settled and then sort of worry about the bottom. So we're going to get our brush wet here again, and we're going to get this wet here, just like that. We're going to work our way around just like we did before. Just like this. Getting it smooth all the way around. And you can see here that already I am not even. Like I do, like right here, it's just very uneven. So I'm going to try and even that out just a bit with my wet paper here. Just like this, and wrap that around. So now I'm pretty happy with how that top is. So I'm going to go ahead and just tuck all of this paper in. You can add a little bit of water if you'd like to get it to sort of loosen up and stay down. Just like that. And then you can tuck it all in here, just like this. Now, no matter what you're gonna do, you are gonna see some imperfections in this bottom part. We're gonna do our best to minimize them, but just by the nature of the shape of this thing, there's gonna be some overlapping, you know, the paper is going to crinkle a little bit, and if you're looking closely when the project is done, you're gonna be able to see that. So let's go ahead and start by just getting all of it wet. I want to get it wet on all sides here, just like this. And then I find that you sort of have to just crinkle it all the way down, right? There's just no other easy way. You can kind of do some little folds. So here, I'll do this from the overhead view. You can see I can kind of fold that, but you are going to be able to see that. There's just no way around it. So we'll do a fold there. We'll kind of do one on the other side over here. It's just going to show up just because of the nature of this shape. So you're going to just kind of do your best. You're going to wrap this around the bottom, and this all will get sealed down better because right now it's very loosey-goosey. It'll get sealed down better once we put the shrink wrap on. So I'm going to go ahead and add our shrink wrap. This shrink wrap is quite a bit larger than this cup, so it's adding it a little bit easier than the other one. And pull it down just like this. Now we're going to use the same heat gun to get this to shrink to our tumbler here. So let's go ahead and hit it with the heat gun. You really want to make sure to get that shrink wrap really shrunk. Now I'm going to add some rubber bands around this taper here. And that is to just try my best to get this as tight as possible to reduce the ghosting that can happen there, or the blurry image. When I was testing this, I found this to be the most difficult part of the whole thing. This is basically just creating even more pressure around this area. The pressure is what helps sublimation actually work. So we're just gonna try and get that part covered with these rubber bands, just like that. So you can see here that I have covered the area of that like little taper there as much as I can with these rubber bands. We're gonna make this one just like the other one, 4 minutes, flip it, and 4 more minutes. This one I just pulled out of the oven, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove the shrink. Honestly, I would normally remove this shrink wrap when this is actually much warmer than this, because I find that sometimes shrink wrap can be very difficult to remove while cool. This is still warm, so it's removing just fine, but if you ever have a difficulty removing shrink wrap, remove it while it's hot. It's just so much easier. Wear your heat-resistant gloves and remove it. And then we can remove our transfer paper here. So removes very easily. And you can see here how cute this turned out. Adorable, right? Now you can see here what I was talking about with that overlap. I think I should have overlapped it the other way. I should have had the darker side underneath and the lighter side on top. And I was thinking about that when I was putting it together, but I totally forgot to do that. And it looks like I ended up getting that kind of ghosting line here. I don't know if there's a great way to avoid that because this is such a delicate material. So this is one of the things I don't like about this material in general. I mean, this is so vibrant. This looks so good. I mean, the edges look amazing. It even sublimated all the way onto the bottom. And I think that looks great, but I have yet to do an edge that I'm really happy with. So for this one, love everything except for this edge. You could trim this down even more, but I feel like because it's wet, it just is very hard to get a perfect crisp edge there. I cleaned off my desk while this was cooking, so let me go ahead and pull this off. I will say that my rubber bands sort of melted slightly in one area, which is a little concerning, but we're gonna pull them off here. Hope they don't break. Those are definitely going in the trash. One-time use rubber band situation here. Yeah, that one broke. There we go. Just pull all of this off. They really did, I don't know if you can see here, but they sort of stuck in this one area, but I don't think that's actually going to be a problem when we pull off the shrink wrap here. So again, sometimes shrink wrap doesn't come off very well when it's cold. This seems to be coming off just fine though. And then I can go ahead and unwrap this and you can see how it looks. So it did stick just a little bit. This side looks amazing. This is like a really great print. So you can see here that the rubber bands really did help keep this nice and crisp. I'm gonna bring another example over here of another one that I did. And you can see here, I hope you can see in the overhead camera, this is very blurry all the way around because I didn't do that rubber band trick. This, however, is my biggest problem here. Is anytime there's like an overlap, again, we're getting just this ghosting, and I feel like there's no good way to line up this sort of tissue paper-like material without a little bit of overlap because of just the way that it shifts. And then you can see here, any place that it overlapped here, your image gets kind of skewed. But there's really no way around that when you have two different diameters. When you're working with two different diameters, you can see here a little bit that it like just kind of messes up your pattern because that paper is being scrunched together. So from far away, this one looks really good, but then you get up close and you start to see it's just not perfect. We have this kind of weird overlap here. We can start to see some of these places where the paper sort of overlapped on itself and it just didn't create such a beautiful image. The top half of this looks fantastic. Bottom half, not so great. So overall, I do like this product. It's not perfect, but it's great for trying out sublimation if you don't have a sublimation printer. This is a great product to test with. I think it works better on straight-sided blanks. Again, I still have that little bit of overlap, and I mean, maybe I could try trimming that down even more and getting it closer, but I'm always afraid I'm gonna get like a big white seam down the side, especially after I have to kind of shove that into this shrink wrap, and I would rather have a little bit of an overlap than the white seam. I think for me, maybe you would prefer having a white seam. Maybe we could test taping. Taping might help. But overall, I think it's a good product, but not a great product. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, or you want to try this product yourself, go ahead and give this video a like. If you want more Cricut, sublimation, and laser tutorials, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next week.